screen. So, and let me do this. So this, you see my slides, right? Not my, okay, excellent. Sure. Excellent. So the case I'm here to make in 15 minutes, the case for radical knowledge management. So let's see how I do. The first thing I'm going to do, whoops, let me see what I can do here. I got too many screens going here. The first thing I'm going to do is start us off with a little guided visualization, just to calm things down, for me at least, a little feeling a little chaotic here at this moment. So we'll do a guided visualization. Hopefully everybody is someplace quiet where you're comfortable closing your eyes and just listening along. If you're someplace that, you know, there's people around or you're uncomfortable closing your eyes and doing the visualization, just listen along like it's a regular presentation and things. But hopefully it looked like everybody was someplace quiet, a home office or an office that they were could be comfortable in. So with that, I will say, get comfortable, take a slow, deep breath, and close your eyes. Picture in your mind's eye a small and delicate flower floating gently inside your skull, just behind the bone of your forehead. Notice the flower's color, its shape, the pattern of its petals. Let the flower drift slowly downward, guiding gently down your throat into your rib cage, drifting down and down between your lungs, downward, gently downward, coming to rest in the lowest place in your abdomen, the place where your breath reaches when you breathe fully and deeply. A quiet touch of color deep in the darkness of your abdomen. Hold the flower there. Hold it. Hold it. Now let it go. Let the flower vanish. But stay focused on the place where it was, deep down in the dark center of you. Focus on the darkness. Now, when you're ready, and only when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into our virtual room. Thank you. John, is the chat open?
It sure can be open. There you go.
Okay. Just in the interest of time, if there's something that you would like to share, I do like to take a moment and reflect on this, but just in the interest of time, I will ask you to share any thoughts, any experiences, anything that you would like to share about that guided visualization in the chat window, and we'll come back maybe and circle around to any comments and things later. I like to start my sessions off with that, just because we are jumping around from virtual meeting to virtual meeting, or if we're back in the office, from meeting room to meeting room. So maybe you're back at your desk now doing this from if you're in the office. So it's just a nice way to calm down for a minute and center and hopefully gain back some focus for what we're about to experience in this next few minutes. So who am I? Quickly, I've been doing knowledge management for over 20 years this year. Actually, 20 years as an independent consultant, 4 years before that at Hewlett Packard. I'm Canadian and based in Berlin, and yeah, have an undergrad in accounting and an MBA in IT. So, and I paint. Unfortunately, 15 minutes is enough time to get us to paint today. So maybe some other time, but I'm a painter. And so I bring that to my knowledge management consulting, and this is where Radical KM comes from. So we know lots of stuff about KM. I know some of the people that were on the call, we all have different, or on this session, we all have different lengths of careers in knowledge management and different experiences, but there are some things that we all know about KM. We all know that everyone's a knowledge manager, even if it's not in your title, because knowledge is critical to the success of our organizations. And so even if you're not on the KM team, people are responsible for their own knowledge and the knowledge of their team, and sharing it and collaborating and creating it. And so it doesn't matter what your title is. Really, you're a knowledge manager to some degree. We know that being good knowledge managers means caring about knowledge. Some of us, myself included, get very passionate about knowledge and how important it is, and can't believe that for me, 25 years into this, I'm still having the same conversations that I had when I started with about why KM is important and why we need to do it, and why it's not just technology, that it's people processing technology. We know that it's important to continuously learn and improve and evolve. So we know all these things. We know that culture is important, because knowledge is people, after all. It's not technology, it's not a process. Those are enablers and absolutely necessary, but people are the cornerstone of knowledge management, and the culture of the organization is going to make or break the success of a KM initiative. We know this. We know that having an understanding and a definition of knowledge management is important. Every organization I've worked with in the last 20 years as an independent consultant has had a slightly different definition of knowledge management and knowledge, and that's okay. What's important is that we define it for the organization and make sure that everyone's clear on it, and share that, make it known. So I'm not here to split hairs over what is or isn't knowledge. We know that there's a spectrum of knowledge that goes from tacit to explicit and everything in between, and there's different activities that you can do depending on what area of knowledge that you're focused on or is a problem for your organization. We know about this. We know that there's a life cycle that goes from creation and developing all the way to being used and applied and retired or deleted, however you like to look at it. We know this, and we know that the life cycle needs to be managed, that we get into big trouble if we don't start removing things from databases or from that's not useful anymore. So we know this. We can't just save everything. I've worked with too many organizations that have had 10 years of stuff in a repository because storage is cheap. So let's just save it all. But this just causes chaos and confusion. So we know the life cycle is important. We know that organizations that recognize the value of knowledge, I'm not going to read you these 9, hopefully you can get through them, and I'll share the slides on the meetup group afterwards if you want to look at these, because yeah, I'm not going to read these ones out. But we know that there are good things that happen to organizations that value their knowledge. And there's a study that seems to have been coming up a lot lately in conversations that matches, or that did the stats, did the study, crunch the numbers, let me put it that way, crunch the numbers, that organizations that have better knowledge management approaches and practices, processes, perform better on the stock market. So why at this point we're still having conversations with managers about the importance of knowledge management? It should be a no-brainer. If we've got this study in these numbers that say organizations with good knowledge management perform well in the stock market, To me, this should be end of discussion. We shouldn't have to be having this rationalization and justification that we continue to seem to have. We work in a knowledge economy, ecology, whatever you want to, however you want to phrase it. We've got to take better care of our knowledge, regardless of what your organization does, what your widget is. Your product is knowledge. We know that supporting knowledge with a strategy is important, especially when you get into larger organizations. You've got to have a strategy, balance things out. It helps to make sure that it's aligned with the organization's goals and objectives. It helps with so many things if we have a strategy to tie all these bits and pieces together. So we know all this, but the world has changed, and especially in the last almost 4 years, 3 years, or I don't know, I've lost track of how many years are we into this pandemic. The pandemic has definitely, if things weren't changed before that, the pandemic has definitely changed things. And I think knowledge management has helped in a lot of organizations to help them adapt to this, the world, how the world has changed. But I think knowledge management needs to adapt as well. And so we need to look at what knowledge management can do to help our organizations and each other thrive in this VUCA. And VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And the world just seems to, every day we'll wake up and it seems to be more VUCA than it was the day before. And to the point where I mostly ignore a lot of my my stream of information that's coming in at me. And just peek once in a while to make sure that the world hasn't blown up and I haven't missed it. So we need, as KM professionals, to help our organizations in this world. And something that I feel like a lot of people missed from this book that Cindy Hubert and Carla O'Dell wrote and published in 2011. They talked about the 3 major ways to directly influence the norms and behaviors of employees with respect to knowledge management. Lead by example. Absolutely, everybody does that. Everybody talks about that. They talk about branding. Certainly most of the organizations I've talked to or worked with, they brand KM. They've got a name for it. They've got communication, and some of them talk about rewards and recognition. People and organizations are good at those first 2 things, but the third thing that Carla and Cindy mentioned in their book, I feel like gets overlooked. And the third thing is making KM fun. We have gotten just deadly serious with KM and documenting it and putting it in the repository. And those are all important things. But if knowledge management, and I believe it is about learning, not just writing stuff down, we learn much better when we're having some fun. And so one of my passions with the knowledge Radical KM is about trying to have some fun and take some of the stress off, make it more fun so that we're learning. And so how do we make it fun besides clown noses in our virtual meetings or in our in-person meetings? And I will say this is one of the things that I miss about having in-person meetings, because if we were in person, I would give everybody a clown nose and you could go back to your offices with your clown nose. And unfortunately, I can't do that in an economical way, but I would certainly advocate for you picking up a clown nose somewhere. Toy stores have them, or Amazon. I bought mine on Amazon. So yeah, different places to get them. And you can get fancy leather ones rather than foam ones. But anyway, enough about clown noses. We can have some fun. It's okay. And this is like, if knowledge management's about learning, and like I say, I believe that it is, how we learn is through playfulness and creativity and curiosity. And so this is what we need to make some space for. It's not all, knowledge management isn't all about being efficient and effective. Those are good things and they're necessary things, but they're not the only thing. And making some space for reflection and playing, and doing things differently. And so these are just a few of the ways that you might make some space for creativity in your life. and I'm going to take the nose off because it gets a little hot. Make some space. And so this is where Radical CAM comes in, is bringing in some little space makers, like the guided visualization we did at the top. I had 15 minutes. I chose to take almost 5 of it, or 3 or 4 of it, with doing that because I felt it was important. And so, yeah, this is where if we had more time, we would do some scribble drawings. If we had even more time, we would do some painting. And so this is Radical CAM, is making some time for that reflection. It brings new ideas together, it brings innovation in, it helps challenge the old ways of thinking. It also activates our sustainability mindset behaviors. And it's, when I looked at this, the ideas around creativity and the things that we learn from having an artistic or creative practice, they're all the things that activate our sustainability mindset behaviors, helping us see the bigger picture and the interconnectedness of things and recognizing the importance of relationships. So this is what Radical CAM is. It's about bringing these ABIs, arts-based interventions, into the organization to help enable our sustainability mindset so that we're making better decisions. Radical CAM combines analytical and creative. Like I say, I have my accounting hat. Sometimes I wear my process accounting hat and my creative. I should have had some paintbrushes. You can see my studio behind me and the paint behind me. So brings them, mashes them up, brings them together. And that's Radical CAM. So it helps improve curiosity and critical thinking, as well as a whole host of other things. And I'm just looking at my timer and I'm at almost 17 minutes. So I need to wrap it up and get to our question. But it really is time. If we're going to do things differently and help our organizations be more innovative and do things differently, more sustainably, then we need to be looking at knowledge management as an enabler of that and make it more creative and analytical so that we can make those decisions and have that sustainable mindset thinking and that creativity and innovation that drives us to do things differently. And our breakout question is, sorry, it just went away on me. Our creativity, and I can't see this on my screen. Let me. Okay, now I can see it on my screen. Are creativity and arts-based interventions the missing piece of the CAM puzzle? In my 17, almost 18 minutes, have I convinced you that creativity and arts-based interventions are the missing piece of the CAM puzzle? Are they what is necessary to keep CAM relevant and help organizations change and adapt in our VUCA world?